Hi folks, we're making a new project today. I have noticed if you swipe to the left you can actually rename these projects so that it's not like just random gobbledygook. So this is going to be our 4-chord song. We made one of these in GarageBand using the Smart Instruments, but today we're going to see how chords are formed on, I guess, any instrument and gain a better understanding of what they are, and also create a nice piece when we do so. So I'm going to click into my new project here. First step for me, I'm always going to add a beat. So I'll just go with something simple here and get that loaded up. For this project, we want to try to keep it simple. So we're going to check and make sure that all of our tracks only have one bar. So I'm going to show my taps here so you can see a little bit better where I'm hitting up at the top here. That switches me over into the beat sequencer here. If I click on those little 3 dots next to that same spot, you can see I have some different options for changing how many bars I have. Since I'm on 1 bar right now, I don't see 1 bar as an option, but in some of these other tracks, I'll show you how to change that to 1 bar. As you can see, another way to look at it also is up near the top here. I've noticed that right up here in this little icon for your track, it's just 1 dash, 1 little underscore almost looks like, and that is a good way to know that I'm working with 1 bar of this particular instrument. So get yourself a beat. Next, we're going to add a actual musical track. So this is where it gets a little more in-depth. We're going to be going back to that beat sequencer or note sequencer for an instrument and sequencing out some chords. So the chords we're going to be using are C major, A minor, G major, and F major. So you don't have to understand what those are to know how to make them. So I published this document on Schoology. I'm going to be flipping back and forth between these two. I highlighted the 4 chords that we're going to be using. So to get a little bit better understanding, let me walk you through here. So these are all our keys, or our bass note for our chords we'll be using. And each chord that we'll be making is called a triad. So it has 3 actual notes that get played together. So for a C major chord, we're going to be playing the note C, the note E, and the note G, which is a 3rd and a 5th above those. And I'll explain what that means in a second. We'll be playing an F major, and those 3 notes will be F, A, and C. We'll be playing a G major, and those 3 notes will be G, B, D. And we'll be playing an A minor chord, and those 3 notes will be A, C, and E. I'll show you what that means. So if the first chord I want to put in, if we're going to do a pattern of C, G, A minor, and F, I'm going to be looking for this C chord first. So let me switch back to Groovebox. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go with maybe my red track next, the Poly 8. And I've been liking this deep hum kind of. So already I note that I have 4 bars in this particular sequence. So I'm going to do a couple things. 1, I'm going to highlight this track and hold it when I can. And that will allow me to, so I'm going to be tapping and holding on this icon as soon as my little assist touch goes away here. But if you tap and hold on any of these tracks, you get some basic options, such as delete pattern. We don't want to delete the whole instrument, not that bottom option, but we want to delete the pattern that's playing right now. We want to get rid of the notes. So that cleans everything out for us. It's basically like the instrument doesn't exist yet. So let's go back to our note sequencer here. And at the bottom, you can maybe notice on mine that I've actually got 4 bars here of music. That's too much. Let's keep it simple. So I'm going to go up again to these 3 dots and click down from 2. I tap again to make it 1. So now I have 1 bar. You can see the bar here, and down here I've created 1 bar. What I'm going to be doing now is creating 4 chords in this grid using the 3 notes that those chords are made up of. I know that sounds confusing, but it's easy in practice. So I'm going to go back to this document that we grabbed from Schoology again. So if I'm looking to create a C major chord, I need three notes: C, E, and G. Ascending in that order, going up in that order. So let's remember that. C, E, and G. Write it down if you have to, or whatever you need to do. So what we want to do is first find C off to the left side here. There it is. And what I'm going to do is actually stretch this note to fill in these 4 counts here. Let's say I want that C note to play all through there. And I can hit play. I hear a nice little C. But remember, this is not just a single note we're creating. We would like to create a triad, or an actual chord. As you can see, we're trying to get C, E, and G into that mix. And on our current setup, we don't have access to E. We just have E flat, you'll notice over here. So we can change that quite easily, and this will be one change that we have to make for our whole song, which is up in this tuning fork here. So now we're actually on a C minor scale, which you don't need to know what that means, but if you switch it to major, that's going to help us a lot. That's going to take away all of our sharps and flats over here. So it'll just be all of our main keys that we want to use for our chords. So if you're not seeing the bass notes over here without sharps and flats and other crazy stuff next to them, that means you need to go up again in that tuning fork, C major. Let's keep it. Anyways, back to work. As you recall, a C major chord is 3 notes. It's a triad, C, E, and G. Let's create that triad. So I have my C note already here, C. I need to add the 3rd note above it. So counting up from C, 1, 2, 3 would be E. And then a 5th would be G. It's the 5th note above that C. I've created a triad. This is a chord. I've created a C chord. How? Well, I have a C as my bass note. I have what's called a 3rd. If you count up 1, 2, 3, this is the 3rd note above that. And then we have what's called a 5th. This G here is the 5th note above that bass note of a C. Hooray, we've created our first triad chord. We're going to fill in the rest of these 4 areas with our next chords. Remember, our pattern is C major, which we've accomplished already. Let's look at what G major looks like. So G major is another triad. The notes in that one are G, B, and D. And let's write down a few of these while we're at it. If we want an A minor, which will be our 3rd chord, that will be A, C, and E, triad. And then our last chord will be F, F, A, C. Will be our 3 notes that make up that triad. So when we hop back over to Groovebox, my pattern will start to look like this. So in this first column over here, I have my C chord. Next, I'm going to create my G chord. And there are options. You know, you've got a G right up here. Or do we want the G down here? So these are kind of outside of the realm of what we're trying to learn today, but we have these 2 different Gs. Just take my word for it that you want the lower G, the one that's below that C that you used already for your first C chord. So this is going to be the bass note for our G, and then the 3rd note above that is a B, if you recall. And then the 5th note above that is a D. So maybe you're already starting to notice a pattern here with our chords. These are called triads. It's a bass note, and then a 3rd, and a 5th. So already I have a C and a G. Next, let's add an A minor. If you recall, that's an A, C, and E. So again, there's A's all over the place. Let's go with this one here. That's our bass note for this chord. A. The third of this triad is C. And the fifth of this triad is E. Let's take a listen. And for our last set of notes, we're looking for that nice F major chord, which you jotted down, or I did anyways, is F, A, C. Let's use this one here. F, A, C. And to stretch those notes, I think I talked about that last week, but you place one, grab that white bar, stretch it across. So we've got a little sequence going here. So what I ask you to do is add a few more tracks and follow that same pattern with all of them. So let's say I wanted to add a little bass. Go blue. Just grab one here. I don't know. I'll just grab this one here. And same thing. First step is you probably want to tap and hold on that track. Delete the pattern out of it. Get those notes cleared out of there. Take it down to 1 bar. Go into your note sequencer. Follow your same pattern. C, G, A minor, F with your third and your fifth attached. If you hit the volume at the top here, mix and match, you'll find something you like. Let's add another one. So let's say I want to add a little green track here. This is like our backup. Just grab one here. Again, first steps, clear out the pattern that's there already. Next, change it to 1 bar. Next, go into your sequencer. Now you can get a little fancier with some of these too. If I turn down the volume of my other 2 tracks here, I'll keep the beat on a little bit. Let's isolate what we have here so we can mess around with this one. So we're going to do our typical C, G, A minor, and F. But let's say instead of stretching these letters out, or stretching all these notes out, let's say we did some interesting pattern work instead. Let's see how that changes things. So instead of those bars, maybe I create a pattern instead with the notes. Let's see how that changes some things. So I'm still using the same notes. I'm just incorporating them as specific beats along the way as opposed to a big long stretched out note. And if I bring that back with my mix, it creates an interesting result. But all my tracks are in harmony. They all are using the same chord progression. We are using the exact same chords, C, G, A minor, and F. So that's what your job is this week, is to build a 4-track. So I've got my 4 tracks here. You know, my drums obviously aren't following this sequence because we have percussion instruments. But all these other tracks that have musical notes, we want to experiment with playing chords in various ways. So maybe you're doing it like this, where you're stretching out those notes to hit those patterns. Or maybe like me, you want to experiment a little bit more with putting them on a beat, so to speak, and creating a sequence that way. You got all week to work on this thing, so have some fun. Make a few creations. We'll get them posted by Friday.